Hi, everyone. I'm Jason McCarthy. My company is ReElivate, and we are a marketplace for experiences. So we're trying to connect companies with experience providers so people can go and help with team bonding, help with client engagement, and do fun things to help enable relationships.
Hello, Jason.
Good to see you, Jody.
And this is like so amazing for me because I do these interviews on Fridays and I air them throughout the
Yep.
week. Fridays are my day that I smile. Like I end my day with like my face hurting because I get to catch up. So this is my guilty pleasure of catching up
Right.
with everybody. But more so, I know my friends, I know my colleagues, I know you guys, but sometimes I just know your companies a little bit more than I know you. So
Right.
I want you to start sharing your story. So let's talk about where did Jason come from? Like what is Jason's story is like where I want to start
Right.
before we start talking about business and work.
Yeah, no, sure. So grew up in Boston, in Tingsboro, a little bit north of Boston. Went to UMass and started in like the accounting field and track, and then went back to grad school and got kind of the entrepreneurial itch.
Oh, Jason.
Yeah.
Did you think it was going to be that easy? Come on now. You just skipped over your entire life and you went right
Oh,
to school. So, no. We're going to do the full rewind. You were in Tinsboro.
yeah,
Start there because you are in, the accounting, we're definitely going to talk about the accounting because I never knew that about you.
yeah.
About friends all the time. But let's just talk about where you started from, where in Tinsboro, like who are you? Like, family, friends, like athlete, like who is Jason?
Yeah. So I mean, my family is myself, my mom, my dad, and my brother. Grew up there. We had a house on the lake, so we were always very like active in the summer. Boating, doing wakeboarding, kneeboarding, all that stuff. And then in the winter, ice skating, snowmobiling, that stuff. So like that was like our fun area. And then as a person in high school, I was definitely not like the jock athlete. I did more of the country club sports, so like golf, tennis, and swimming were my sports.
It's so funny that you say the country club sports. I'm from the islands. We do the same thing. So,
Okay, all right.
and mind you, I'm from as people love to say, you're from the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. I'm like, yeah, but we still have these activities that we do as well. So it's like, it's
Right.
how you label that the country club sports where I go, no, we do that in other countries too.
Oh no, totally. Well, at our school, those sports were like brand new. Like the teams were just getting started. Like the teams that had the funding and everything were like the football team, the basketball team, swim team started as a club, and then we started like moved it up, and then golf. I think I was on the inaugural golf like club team.
Yeah.
So like they were just getting started there. So they were not like very proliferated programs. Like they were just like very new.
Little do they know that they were going to be the ones that people focused on the most with Michael Phelps, with Tiger Woods. So you were in the cutting edge.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of made Michael Phelps. I think that's a good point. Like.
So throughout your entire life, you've been active in regards of being outdoors, being with sports, family dynamics. Is there anyone in your family or whether your relatives, your family that were in the entrepreneurial world?
Yeah, so my dad is a professor at UMass, and he started a incubator for medical devices. So I think that's probably where I started to get some of that itch and exposure to a lot of the new companies. So like when I was in undergrad, for example, one of the things that my dad had me do was like help one of his postdocs write an SBIR grant. So I definitely had like some more.
For people that have no idea what the SBR grant is, what is that?
I actually don't know what the acronym stands for, but it's
it's basically a
grant or you can get. It's a grant for technologies that you can get from the federal government. That is, for in this case, it was around a medical innovation where they were trying to get a wound closure device, and they had done some research at UMass and were looking for additional funding for research. And there's grant programs that you can apply to, and this was one that we did. But he's definitely where I got a lot of that exposure and entrepreneurial edge from, like and he had gotten that probably like later in his career because he had started more as a professor, but then, wanted to create this environment where students could go and get good experience in medical devices. Masters is really great for medical devices, and companies could get, like early stage companies could get access to more resources than they could normally, because they'd have access to the school, all of the production that they could do there, and they'd have access to all the college students who could help them for a lot lower rate or no rate, really free internships in some cases, just for experience. So it was like this great match. And so that's where I got the exposure to entrepreneurship and got that itch.
So now you're watching your dad, you're seeing how this is evolving. You go to UMass, obviously easy peasy, like you go to school, you go to UMass. The UMass system, for anyone that's listening, the UMass system, it's a public school, but it's a very large.
Yes.
So which UMass did you go to?
So for undergrad, I went to UMass Lowell, and for graduate school, I went to UMass Amherst.
Okay. All right. And what was it that you wanted to like? So you teased it, but I want to hear about it a little bit more. Your dad's a professor. What did your mom do?
My mom was a nurse, and then she was a stay-at-home mom for me and my brother. But she was, got her master's degree in nursing and was a nurse prior to raising us.
and mind you, the synergy right there, because your dad and your mom partners in time. He's a professor. He's going to the he's doing an incubator for medical devices. She's a nurse. I mean, so what a great energy in regards of getting. Totally. So, I mean, it worked out really well there. See, I caught that very quickly. I'm sure you probably didn't, but I noticed it.
No, you got it. You pick up quick. Can't get much past you, Jodi.
So then you decide to go, you're going to school undergrad. I mean, and so accounting, where did that come from? I mean, why?
Yeah. Accounting, so originally I had started in engineering and was so my dad's an engineer and my brother ended up being an engineer. My cousin's an engineer. So I was like, I'll be an engineer. And I was not very good at it. I was definitely not, the advanced mathematics was not my strong suit. So I started taking some other classes, and accounting just came very easy to me, and it just made sense. So started down that path, and ended up going and getting a job as a fund accountant, and then realized that this is not what I want to be doing long term. So I went back to grad school, and then the market crashed. So I went back to get my MBA in 2008. So started school, and the market just crashed right as I started. So it was a bad situation. So I was like, I also had a lot of student debt and was like, what am I going to do when I get out? I was really young. I'd only worked for a year. So I didn't have really much savings. So I was like, I need to I looked at who was hiring still. And it was really just the big four, and a lot of those accounting firms, it was still pretty steady. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take the classes I need in order to qualify for my CPA at the same time. And then I also took entrepreneurship classes at the same time, and ended up thankfully getting partnered up with a engineering student who was doing research on how we actually met, a novel drag reducing technology. So it was a film that you put on the bottom of a boat to increase the fuel efficiency or increase the speed, or that was the hope in the beginning. It was really just laboratory stage, and it was a patented technology around reducing drag, and we were trying to scale it up. So did that, started working on that on the side, and we entered a business planning competition, got some money, and decided let's see if this has legs. I don't really want to be an accountant. I didn't like it the first time, so I'm like, let's see if this has legs, and the rest is history. So did that, and we got into Mass Challenge, which is how you and I met.
Well, all right. So the funny thing about this, all right. So one, I didn't know. So we were in our MBA programs at the same exact time. So I was at the same exact time, sitting in a classroom. The president of the school comes up and says, by the way, you guys are now overqualified. We're like, what's happening? And they're like, we don't know what's happening, but you're all overqualified and you're going to find a job. And you're like, okay, so my company from 11 years ago is my capstone. I mean, this is my capstone is still alive and well. But I totally forgot about why and how you got into the competition and what your product was. And so you went from being an accountant to now working on boats. mean,
Yeah.
knowledge there. I mean, yes, you spent a lot of time on the water when you were younger, but
Right.
what was that knowledge that you had to even, I mean, what was the learning curve like?
It was pretty steep, especially the technology side. You know, the technology side, I had a partner who was like, he was brilliant. He was definitely one of the smartest people I've ever worked with. So a lot of that was really just me parroting things that he said, where he'd be like, I'd hear the answer he gave to someone else, and then someone else would ask the same question. I'm like, here's what I heard, and I could parrot it, but quite honestly, I couldn't really explain a lot of it in detail. He was definitely the brains behind it. I was just trying to figure out how to apply it and make it, commercialize it. So we started like with this grand aspiration of like trying to change commercial shipping. So if you can reduce skin friction drag by like a little bit, you could actually save trillions of dollars in fuel. And so that was the grand aspiration. And then we needed to like start with like a beachhead market. So we started with looking at autonomous underwater vehicles. So like talk to the Navy, and the Office of Naval Research was very interested in anything that could expand the range of their autonomous underwater vehicles. So if you can reduce the drag, the robot goes further. And in the case of the Navy, that could mean for some of the minesweeping robots, the ship could be further away. So like you're putting less lives at risk. So like the cost of like an early stage technology, even though it would be really high, is worth it. It's not like we're not trying to like make sure there's a benefit of a certain amount for, fuel savings. That's why we couldn't go after like smaller boats or things like that, so that was really our initial market. And the Navy was great. They partnered with us. They gave us a lot of free testing. They had actually paid for some of the research. And unfortunately, the technology didn't scale up. So there's a few components that made it not work. So like in the lab, it was in like a laminar flow. And then when you brought it out to like autonomous underwater vehicles, it was in like a turbulent flow. And the way it essentially would work is there'd be like thousands of microscopic air pockets on this coating, and it would reduce the amount of like surface area that's touching the water. So like that's how it would actually reduce it. And essentially the bubbles would pop in turbulent flow, or like if there's too much pressure. And for the other applications, the big challenge that I didn't even know existed before I went in there was anti-fouling. So like there's so anti-fouling basically, which is a term I didn't know before I did this. It's like all the barnacles and everything that gets on the boat is called biofouling. And you need to be able to stop that. So like in a lot of ships, they actually use toxic coatings. They use like a metal coating. Like not like it's a paint that has like zinc in it, I believe, and there's like a few other like metals in it that are like toxic. It leaches into the water and it like kills the stuff, so the stuff doesn't like actually stick to the boat. And so we needed to figure out, how does our thing work with this? And it didn't. It actually ended up being worse than like a flat piece of coating, because like our thing was basically microscopic crevices. And they loved it. They got all up in those crevices. And so they pulled out the plates of the two things, and ours was worse than a flat plate. So I was like, this is not good.
So you take all this time, you learn about this, and mind you, as you're talking, I'm like, God, that learning curve was hard, but look how it's flowing out of your mouth right now. It's amazing. So then what was that moment where this is not working really well? I kind of like have to make a jump. So what happened between realizing it wasn't going to work and then making the jump? And where did you go?
The nice part was like there was distinct points of like those tests. So once we got the test back on the anti-fouling, we knew, okay, this isn't going to work. We're going to focus on the autonomous underwater vehicles, because like those are only in the water for a small amount of time. And then once we got the test back on that, there was like two separate tests. Once we got the test back on that and it didn't actually perform well in turbulent flow, there wasn't commercial viability for any of the markets that we looked at. So it was pretty clear. Like at that point, like there's nowhere to take this. And so, my partner and I agreed to, shut it down. And I reached out to people. Actually, Shonak connected me with Ray, and Ray was at.
You do realize that people that are listening to you right now have no idea who Shonak or Ray are, so it really does.
Oh, they might know who Shonak is. Shonak's pretty well known.
Mutual friends of ours.
Yeah, mutual friends of ours, and they connected us with Daily Grommet. And at the time, Daily Grommet was really small. Had done about like $1 million in revenue, 10 to 12 people.
What is Daily Grommet?
Daily Grommet is it's now called the Grommet, and it is a e-commerce site where they find unique consumer goods, and they launch a new one every day. So like they had found, even before I got there, they had found like SodaStream, Bananagrams, like these things that became household names. They found them early. So it's a great place for like early adopters to see like cool new stuff that's coming to the market. And it's a great place for makers, those people that are making it, to be able to get their product out there. So like there's a real challenge in like distribution, or it's less so, but even more than, there was a real challenge around like getting your product out there, getting it found, and getting it distributed. And Grommet helped with that.
One of the things that I loved about that, so this is when I was literally like pretty much I was living at your house quite some time, for a very large period of time.
Yep.
You would bring all these cool things home.
Oh yeah.
Bring all these random things home, and it was just like we were all your test site.
Yep.
And it was just amazing because you are right. There are so many individuals that are creating a thing, not a business, but a thing, and it falls flat. So I've watched so many amazing products fail because I am an inventor. I am not a business person. And
totally.
The Grommet being in existence was such a game changer. So what was your role there? How did it evolve? You have a taste of entrepreneurship. You're working with all these innovators. You're helping them grow their business, but you are part of in essence, a startup as well. So you're wearing all these hats, but you're coming in being that person that had all these different, even you were an engineer for a moment of time. So what was that like at that time, at the beginning, and how it's grown?
So I when I started there, I was on the operations side. So I was working with like our suppliers, our makers, we called them, and making sure that the inventory was in place, shipments were getting out, just making sure things just go smoothly. So like all of the post-purchase stuff, like getting someone to buy, like that's the first half, and the next half is getting them their stuff. I was the second half of like getting them their stuff, getting the people that are new to our platform set up and onboarded, working with these makers to like actually try and help grow their business and make sure that they can fulfill their obligations, and we made everybody happy. So that was my role at the start there. And in doing that, one of my functions was like placing purchase orders for our warehouse. And one of the things I found was that like it was really hard to get inventory or information from these makers on inventory, right? So like I'd place this purchase order for $10,000, and I would get a worse service level than if I went home and bought a single unit of it for $10. Like if I buy it at home, like I know it's there. I get a tracking number in my email immediately afterwards. I'm like, I know when I'm gonna get it. But like on the other side, I'm buying, $10,000 worth. I'd have to send them an email, be like, here's our PO, and then follow up like 8 times, like, did you get it? Send me the tracking number. Where is it? When am I gonna get it? And I was like, if I'm struggling with this, and we weren't big yet, but like we were definitely larger than smaller retailers. There's a lot of people that must be struggling with this problem. So came up with the idea of starting a B2B website that would be a similar to the Grommet. We'd sell the same products, but we'd sell it wholesale to small retailers and try and bring that service level that you get on B2C to the B2B world. So that was my role there. Started that business. Originally, it was just a side hustle while I was doing my current role. And one of the awesome things I loved about Grommet was, Jules and Joanne, the two founders, were like really good about, letting people run with ideas and help, try and, pave the way to do new stuff. And so talked about this idea, and they were like, test it out. So they were helping test it out. We went and was doing it as a side hustle, and then eventually became my full-time role. And eventually it ended up being, I built a team of 13 people. We brought it from nothing to 14 million. One of the bigger things that we did was we did branded display end caps. So we would do, like, you walk into a store and it has a Grommet end cap that has all these cool, unique things. So like one of the challenges that on the physical retail side that we didn't have was explanation of the product. So like in e-commerce, you have like a video that you could do, which was something that we did really well. We made a video of the product so people could understand it really well. Whereas like in physical retail, you get 3 seconds, they look at the packaging and they either get it or they don't, and they move on. And so that was a real challenge for a lot of our makers because they didn't have the money to invest in this really nice packaging, and they needed to get some traction in order to do that. But they also had unique products that weren't easily explainable. So that's where our branded end caps really helped, because it was a destination for unique things. So it was like enough of a stopping point where people could come and look and understand, like, oh, these are a bunch of things that are all made by small makers that are new and take a little bit more time to understand, and they'll like sit and read it. And we made like postcards that would have, an explanation of what the product is. So we helped with some of the point of sale materials. And so we did that with Ace Hardware, was the biggest one. We did it with a few retailers, but the biggest, where we saw the most success was with Ace Hardware. And a major reason for that is the way that they're structured is like a co-op. So like every single Ace store is individually owned. It's not owned by corporate. And so they care a lot about small business. They need to compete on differentiated product, compete on service. So like if you could get them good products, their people would learn them, sell them. It's not like going to a big box store where people don't know what they're talking about. Like everybody there knows their products in and out. It's a phenomenal community. And that was a big reason for its success. So that grew to like 1,000 stores, and Ace ended up acquiring the Grommets in order to try and get new products in their stores. They want to find the next Yeti, Traeger, or Big Green Egg before it becomes that, so that way they can try and, not like be able to control and help them grow. So it doesn't go to like Home Depot or Lowe's. They want to be able to really partner with that next big brand and find that next big brand. And that was why they acquired the Grommet.
So I love that the Grommet did that, because I'm thinking about, so I started my career in education, but then I went to music. I worked at a radio station, and it was so interesting how a Rolling Stones, Prince, Lenny Kravitz would always do well, but then that new up and coming never did, because it was very hard to get that. They had their following, but they didn't know how to market themselves. They were music makers, and so they partnered with the teeny bopper shows like CW, where they have their songs on these like Dawson's Creek or all these other little shows, and that created a larger following where the record rep would now come to them. Now, totally. with a lot of these makers, you're right. The makers, they're creating these amazing things that they had a pain point. They created something to solve it. They don't know how to get it out. And Grommet really elevated it, where usually people would assume I would see this product at late night. I can't sleep. 2:00 in the morning. That's when I'm seeing this weird, amazing product. And then I'm like impulse buying. But now you're bringing it into the point where you don't have to be that impulse buyer and lose out sleep. You can find it in your main store. But the question is, Ace Hardware, it's Ace Hardware. What if it's something that's a cooking product? Like, why would Ace Hardware be the perfect fit for a Grommet product or maker?
Yeah, no, we actually got that question a lot. And I didn't understand Ace's ecosystem in the beginning as well as I came to learn it. But their stores are all, because they're individually owned, they vary quite widely. So like they have 5,500 stores, I believe, in the US. Okay. And there's a lot of different concepts. So like there's the lumber yards, which like we weren't necessarily a good fit for. There were some stores that were, convenience stores, which were like smaller. It's really just, like I need batteries, or I need, some hardware, that's that. But then they also have these like larger stores that are, basically like super centers. Like they're general stores in some areas. They'd have like giant stores. And we, in those places, they do carry housewares. Housewares was actually a major category for a lot of their stores.
Okay.
So they would carry that. They'd carry gifts, that would be like, so in our area, it's, I think, a little bit different. I mean, if you go to like Tags, I think, for example, in Porter Square, they do housewares phenomenally, and they're an Ace store, and they worked well with us. And they were awesome to work with.
Tags is that a part of Ace Hardware?
Yes.
Okay. So
Tags is an Ace Hardware.
So Tags and Ace Hardware that you're mentioning is in Porter Square, which is in Cambridge, which is right like down the street from Harvard University.
Yep, exactly. And they have a giant houseware selection, and they do all different types of stuff. Like, you wouldn't think it's a hardware store.
So now, how do you get from Grommet and not only being at Grommet, but you have like literally elevated yourself in the company. You have created different paths. You've learned so many different things. Clearly, you're very like spoken about how you're a quick learn, which is good. I mean, it's that you walk into see things, but you are a very quick learn. And once you learn something, you're adding more to it. You're adding those skill sets, and you bounce from different places, which is really interesting for you, and still succeed in the different places. How do you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so part of that, so after Ace acquired the company, Ace is a wholesale distributor where they actually do a lot of the distribution themselves. So they started to absorb my team. They started to do those functions. And so I moved over to like run the operations for Grommet, and was doing that. And then, there was a shakeup at the company. So the two founders, Jules and Joanne, and myself were, removed from the company at the end of June. So that was definitely a interesting, like, so I think you described it very well for what I like to do, where I do like to do a new thing all the time. And in that operations role, I was doing something new. I was starting to really learn that, and I was enjoying that. So it was a shake up for me personally, of like understanding like, whoa, what just happened? I've been at this company for 7 years. Like, and so it was definitely not a choice to leave on my part, but it ended up being great for me, because like I'm the type of person where I become very like obsessive over like what I'm doing. So like I was thinking all Grommet all the time, and I never took a step back to be like, is this the right thing, or are there other things I want to be doing? And so being able to get that like freshness and clarity of like clean slate, now what do you want to do? And so got that. And one of the things that one of my partner who I ended up working with, I loved working with, we worked together for 6 years at the Grommet. He and I had always talked about like, we'd love to go do something together. And so it became like, rather than like, here's an idea, let's go do it. It became like, we want to work together. We want to do something. What's the idea? And so we started thinking, and we're talking about like different opportunities. And one thing that we both really struggled with was team building and team bonding. And especially when COVID started. At Grommet, we would do these like, happy hour calls, and you'd get on, you'd do, it'd be like kind of forced group. And it wasn't fun, honestly. I love the people there, but like, even when I do those calls with like people I'm close friends with, it's just kind of awkward where you have like 6 to 8 people on a Zoom call. And you're like, if it's just casual and there's no topic, you get like, it's not a normal conversation, And so one of the things that we started doing with our friends was like, we started doing activities, we started doing games together, we started doing things together. So that way you're like all doing something on the call, and it just felt totally different. It didn't feel like a Zoom call. It actually felt like hanging out. You're all doing something together. And I was like, why don't we take that to the, to the company side? Like this same solution works well on the company side. And so we started going after that route. And originally our plan was, we're going to go and launch a marketplace platform where everybody can come on and self-service and do that. And we're still planning to do that. But have had a lot of, we started in September, and we've had, it's, end of November, beginning of December now. And so we've had a lot of people that are really interested in booking events even prior to us launching the platform. So we've kind of just been like offering up events, booking events, talking to people at events. Like it's been really cool to see like the demand, because like the pain is really there. And a lot of companies are really struggling with this, looking for help on it. And so that's what we've been, working on and trying to deliver. And that's the goal. The goal long term is to like one of the things that we've felt is that like, why is it like you can go and find a new restaurant and book a reservation on OpenTable like nothing? Why can't you do that for, a group activity? Like there are 12 of us. We all want to go do something. Let's go do the local escape room. It's available Friday at 5. Done. We're going. That doesn't.
Well, it's so funny that you say that, because I mean, all those things like the booking a restaurant didn't exist before, and it was a point. And so this is a great thing. And I remember at the start of the pandemic, it's like, I mean, I'm a spring baby and I had a birthday. Yep. We did do a game my birthday night, which I love that. But it was so funny because I'm like, okay, I was like on the app and things, and it was better than just hanging out and talking on Zoom with friends. Because like, I mean, at that point I had so many wine nights and family nights, and people were talking and it was loud. And I'm like, you know what, this is like boring for me. Yeah. It was great because you guys introduced the game that I've been speaking to so many other people, like, you guys can do family game night. They're like, what do you mean? How do you do that? So you answered it very well, where my first reaction was, when the pandemic ends, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel, what happens next? So it's an extension. So walk me through, if I'm a company, how do I work with you, and how do I keep that relationship with you now during the pandemic and well afterwards?
No, I think that's a great point. So what our view on the way that work is going to return, we don't think that we're going back to the way it was. Yeah. So it's not going to be everybody comes in 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, and in the office all the time. What we're seeing from a lot of companies is the move towards flexibility. And a lot of employees are really demanding flexibility. Like they want to be able to come in when they want, to stay home when they want, as long as they're getting their stuff done. Like I think that's the way that a lot of companies will start to move towards. And so because of that, those, organic interactions of like, we bump into each other in the hallway, or, we're, each eating lunch in the break room, like those are going to become less and less. So we think that companies are going to need to invest in, opportunities for employees to create those organic relationships. That's really what helps with employee engagement, is relationships, like caring about one another, having friends at work, and then working closely towards a common goal. And you're going to need opportunities to do that. So our plan is to eventually make it an employee benefit. So we'd work with a company where they could make it an employee benefit to their employees, where you each get $100 a month or whatever amount to go do stuff together. And you guys can choose what to do together. There's this platform that you can do it on. If you 6 want to go do, a cooking class, go for it. If you 6 want to go do axe throwing, go for it. Like that's the type of world that we see coming up, is where, it will start to be like catered lunches and free snacks in the break room as a perk that like is also helpful for companies to be able to help with retention and employee engagement. So that's where we see it going. The long term will be a hybrid, where we'll have virtual events and physical events, and events that you can do both, because like there's also distributed teams. So there's and remote workers before the pandemic were very isolated, right? So like, and because the majority of people hadn't really experienced remote work, there wasn't this like from non-progressive companies, there wasn't this like push for like, what do we do to make this person feel more included? But now that everybody's experienced it, they're going to want to do that. So having an event that people can join virtually and do in person is going to be important. And that's what we're going to try and provide.
I think that's like it's just so smart. It's really a reverse, because I'm hearing about the 1 or 2 people that are going into the office and they're like, I'm in the office by myself, I'm safe, but I'm by myself and I'm burdened. And then I'm now in the office doing a Zoom call with everyone that's at home, which is the absolute reverse of what it is.
Totally.
You are in essence, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you've dipped into all these different things. You've experienced all the different things during 2 major pandemics of the world. I mean, in our lifetime, usually you get one good one in your life, or your professional lifetime. We've been hit with 2 major ones in a 11-year span. what would you tell to, I mean, because you're doing it right now, but
Yeah.
what would you say to anyone that is furloughed, just lost their job, or is at home at a job that they just really just don't like at all, and they're realizing this is something I should be doing.
Right.
I always say to everybody, you never want to waste a good crisis. So
Right.
what do you say to a person? I mean, because you're a person that experienced two times.
Yep.
I mean, same thing. It's kind of
Yep.
crazy.
Yeah.
What would you say, what I mean, what was your experience? What are your feelings between the differences between the two? And what would you say to someone that wants to like go that route? I just gave you three major things here.
All right. All right. So
Go for it.
I'll see if I can grab them all. I mean, I would say that like anytime there is, a change or disruption, it creates opportunity. I think that's one of the things that I've noticed is that like in both scenarios, a lot of innovation happens in this time because like the way people are, it's not just like a day in the life, like things are changing. And so behavior is going to change. Behavior did change. So the way that things were are not going to be the same going forward. So you need to take an idea of like what you think is going to happen and position yourself to be able to capitalize on it is how I've viewed it. I also, my advice would be like the opportunity doesn't just sit there for you. You have to go and make it yourself and take it. You need to be proactive and actually move forward and action. I think honestly, there's really not a lot of special sauce to a lot of it. It's just going. It's just moving forward. It's just everything you read about like hyper successful people, which I hope we both are someday, is
what we're not. Wait. We're not that now. What?
No, we're not Elon Musk, but maybe we will be. But it's all about just action, moving forward. Next step, keeping going. Like if you're sitting there just analyzing and having that paralysis, like you're never going to get anywhere. So more of it's just doing. Like the first step's the most important. And yeah, I think those are my things of advice. I think I forgot the third question. I'm done trying to.
No,
did I hit them?
In comparison to the two of the like where you were 10 years ago to now. I mean, look, you've grown in all that time. Yeah. I remember I graduated and I was in full panic mode. Like, holy crap! I mean, I was an educator for 10 years. I worked in the media for 10 years. I was working at conferences. I was in school. I did everything right. I have 5 degrees. I did everything right. And then I'm being told, no one's going to touch you. You're overqualified. Good luck. And I'm like, panic mode. So what was it like for you? Because you got out of school at the same time. And now I mean, where's your comfort zone? And you have a beautiful young family.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it was the previous pandemic. It was more brazen, if you will. Like I didn't know what I didn't know. Like, so I was like, oh, I'll just do it. And then when I went and did it, I realized I wasn't ready to do it myself. Like there was like so many things I was like, I didn't know how to do. I wasn't prepared. I mean, I really had only had 1 year of work experience before I did it. So what I wanted to do was go and work at another company afterwards. So I was like, I'm not ready to do this again myself. Yeah. And then I went and worked at another company, learned all that experience, and still had that itch where I'm like, at the end of the day, I do want to run my own company. That's where I want. That's my goal. It's always been my goal. But now I'm ready. Where like I've learned a lot, I've done a lot, and now I know exactly. It's less, brazen and more like calculated risk. Like I understand what it's going to take. I've built something from nothing to 14 million and built. I was at the Grommet where we built from nothing to 60 million. So like I understand the risk of like how to do it and have seen some of the pitfalls. So I'm like, it's less it's more understanding of what I'm getting into. And then this time I also think it's changed quite a bit where, balance is really important too. It's you can't just, work all day, every day. It's like, you need to, for me, spending time with my daughter and my wife is the most important. Especially my daughter, there's really only so much time in the day, right? So she's at daycare, so she comes home, 5 to 7:30 and then in bed. So like being able to like log out, hang out with her is important and critical. And, if you don't find that balance, then it's not going to work. So I think that's something that like is important to me and I'm trying to do, because like there's always so much more that you can do, and trying to get better at.
You mentioned the family. How was it during I mean, like literally at the beginning, full
Yeah.
lockdown, you're in the house, probably never been in the house for that long of a time. And then you have a toddler at home.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm here. I'm so excited. Mommy and daddy are in my face 24/7. And you're leaving one company, you're starting a company. How was it in regards of having the three of you in the house all day, every day for quite some time?
It was a roller coaster, because like there was so many like pros where like you're actually getting some of that time in the day with her, my daughter Livy, and that I wouldn't normally get. So there was like a lot of pros there, but then the cons were like your time is just so like it's in such demand on both sides, because we didn't have any help. Like my parents would come help when they could, but like majority of days we were watching, one of us was watching her and the other one was working. And the biggest challenge was like meetings where we'd like try and like, we'd both be booked at 10 a.m. and it was like the night before was like negotiating who's going to what meeting, where it's like, I can move this one, can you move yours? Like mine's with the CFO, yours with whatever. Like you're trying to like figure out whose meeting's more important, and it just created this like tension that was harder. But there were a lot of pros, and I was actually really happy about it because we got more time with her. But there was definitely some harder times too.
I'm laughing because I could see the whole entire, like, no, you're like, I go, I'm meeting with CFO. No, I'm meeting with CFO. I mean, I could see that because I have seen the discussions have been so heavy on the negotiation.
Yeah.
Home is harder than the negotiation in the office. And I think that's been one of the funniest things for me, where I always ask, did you marry well? Because if you say yes, and I'm like, okay, then you guys have the negotiation down. If not so, there's like, well, I spend a lot more time in the downstairs office than I need to. So it's very interesting.
For us, the negotiation went well, and like we're both pretty fortunate that like our companies were really understanding. Like not everybody's in that situation, so we were definitely fortunate where our companies were really understanding. We were able to do it. It just created some of that back and forth, and so it worked out.
What did the pandemic do for your company? I mean, so you are a brand new company with a clear need. So what did the pandemic do for you in regards of, yes, you left a job. Yes, you had this idea. We're in a pandemic. We're here for a while. We are here for a while. So what did that do for you and your thought processes and the way that you pivoted your ideas and your concepts of what you're doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, originally our idea, the pain points we started talking about were on the physical event side. So like both John and I would do team holiday parties or team outings for team bonding. And it was hard to find stuff, like I did axe throwing or whatever. So the way that the pandemic helped was like, it created a new focus of like, well, let's focus on virtual to start and do it that way. And it made this like hyper pain where like, it's actually been very easy to get people to, engage and understand what we're trying to do, because the pain is so high for them right now. Whereas if we were going after the physical, the pain is like, it's more sporadic. It's not like an everyday thing. So I think it's actually been a huge benefit to us, because we're able to like get those conversations easier, start a dialogue with companies much easier than if we were trying to start doing physical events and starting from that point, even though that is our end goal to have both. It's actually created that opportunity for us.
Where do you see this industry going on for now? I mean, obviously conferences are going to change.
Yeah.
We're not going to see conferences until, no exaggeration, 2022. Because just because they start next year doesn't mean people will go to them.
Oh, totally.
So the small activities, the axe throwing, I saw that you guys did that, the axe throwing. We've done a very good bubble in my town, where I have a very curated bubble, which is different activities. For my mother's birthday, I did go to Florida, hazmat suit, the whole entire, I was fully loaded. But even so, with all the activities that I did with her, to keep her safe. I mean, they were very curated, and I did my. I mean, the amount of work to find the right activity was insane for me. It was so hard, but found them. So, where do you see the evolution of activities overall, small or large, in the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like for like a lot of like bigger activities, one of the things that like, so there's been a ton of innovation around that. So like there's a lot of platform.
Already.
Yeah, so in there's a lot of like the tech platforms that are being built in order to help, companies do conferences or do like, so Hop Into, for example, Party Space, Remo. There's a lot of VC money going into how do I make a large virtual event feel, not like a Zoom call.
Okay.
I think that breakouts are going to be important for that. I think that video is inherently hard with a large group to make it interactive. We do have some events. I've been really surprised that there actually are some events that can do that. Like we have a magician, for example, that, he makes it interactive by like everybody is on their phone at the same time and he's doing tricks onto their phone. So like everybody's
That's
engaged.
cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. He's engaging people that way. I was like, how do you get 70 people on a call to all be interacting? And it's like, oh, you use another device. So like, there's like cool ways to do that. We have a drawing platform that's similar where it's like, you're all on a call, but then you're all on a drawing platform and making, so like they'll do a hosted thing where they'll ask like, what are you excited about today? Everybody draw, and it like comes up with like 100 drawings all at the same time. So that's been really cool to see that. I think there'll be a lot more innovation there. And I also think that the way people think about events will change too, where they'll like take a larger group and break them into smaller groups of like, there's 60 of us. We're all going to start on one thing and then we're going to break out into smaller things. And, each person are going to do that. So for example, we're doing a holiday party for a company that's like 350 people and they're running 3 simultaneous events at the same time. So everybody's going to go do their own activity. But they are, so like, it's not 300 people on one call. And that's their approach that they've taken to it. And I think more people will adopt that.
You hit something, so like you touched it, but I literally have to bring that back a little bit, where individuals are at home, they're doing all these different activities. A lot of these younger, or not even just younger people, but there are people in your company that they're working late, not because they want to be working late, but more so because they don't have they don't have the Wi-Fi, they don't have the connectivity, they don't have the computer at home to do that work. And so now they're struggling at home, they're trying to get their work done, and now you're like trying to like do these fun activities. But guess what? My Wi-Fi, my phone, maybe I'm old school, I have a flip phone. How is that working out? Because you're seeing it with the schools about how a lot of students, there's a picture that's so well, it's getting more and more play of these kids in front of Taco Bell doing their homework because that's where they can get the Wi-Fi. And so how are you dealing with that as well? Because that is like, how do you get everyone engaged in this? Is that the responsibility of the company, or do you help with that?
It's more like right now it's really more on the company, but like I do think that this has highlighted a major issue in our society where like we've treated internet access like it's a privilege, or like it's not, whereas like in reality it's a utility, and it will be a utility where like it's necessary. So like it needs to be priced and controlled that way, and needs to be more accessible. Like it is at this point, the way the world is going, it's starting to be as, critical as electricity and, like other public stuff, so other public work stuff. So I think that hopefully will change. I'm hopeful that in our society, like it'll start to move towards that. Accessibility will become a lot easier and it is governed that way. But right now it's kind of, wild west in the telecommunications space.
Absolutely. That's without a doubt. Who's your best customer? Like, who is the person that, what is the company, who's the person that you want to engage with the most?
So the person that's a great question. So like within a company, what role is the person that we're working with?
Tell me. I don't know.
Yeah. So really we see 3 main use cases for our platform and 3 different users. So like there is the team building. So any team manager, that's one of the things I like about it, is that like anybody that runs a team is struggling with this pain. So that they are all welcome and can do events. You don't need to have buy-in from the larger company in order to book a 5-person event. And then with above that, there's like client engagement side. So people like normally would be, wining and dining their clients. They'd have taken them out 3 or 4 times by now within a year. They haven't been able to do that. So they need the ability to do that, and they need something that's unique, a draw. So like the people that we've talked to there in the beginning, everybody would jump on a Zoom call because like they were just starved for communication.
Yep.
And then now they've hit the period where like people are avoiding Zoom calls like crazy. So they're getting blown off by clients. So they need a draw. They need someone to get that person onto the call so they can have that conversation. Because if they're just like, hey, let's do a check-in, person's like, nah, I'm good. So that is the other great user. And then finally, company events. So like large holiday parties have been a big push for us right now because that's just the time that we're in.
Yep.
Everybody's like, what are we going to do? We normally would go rent out the room in, some hotel, but now what do we do? So they're coming to like, everybody's really coming to us and other places of like, more just like for ideas. They're like, what can we do? A lot of people have like the same things like, we're thinking about maybe trivia or these other things, but like there's so many other types of events out there that you can do. And that's really what we've been finding and what's been cool. And I think one of the awesome things for us too is like a lot of those people that we're talking to are on the hunt for new events. So like they kick events our way. So like whenever I talk to them, they're like, I'm like, what have you found? Like, here's what we have. What am I missing? Like, what have you found? And I've gotten awesome events from that. Of like, well, I saw that this cool thing existed too. I'm like, awesome. I'm reaching out to them. I'm going to add it to the catalog. So it's been cool. It's like it's kind of, a social building of our catalog where people are telling us the things that they're seeing. We're telling them the things that they're seeing. We're just kind of aggregating it.
I love that you say that. So my, I have my beautiful little niece, Phoebe. And so a lot of my friends have kids. I mean, and Auntie Jodi took 10 zillion children. And they always look forward to Auntie Jodi Day. And Auntie Jodi days are known to be epic days where I sit there and just do one activity with you, but I usually do epic. So Phoebe is 11 years old and she waited 2 years for an Auntie Jodi Day. And so I couldn't disappoint her. Her brother got one and she was so jealous. And she's like, I've been waiting 2 years. So in one day, we went to all New England states in one day. We were in the car for 10 hours driving, outside of the car for 6 hours. Dr. Seuss Museum. Did I know there's a Dr. Seuss Museum? Had no idea. There's dog sledding in New Hampshire. Did I know we had dog sledding? No. We went zip lining. I mean, we did all these activities and unless I was looking for them, I'd never know. Because and this is nothing that the pandemic has done. The pandemic has created a virtual gateway of all these New England sports, but also sports and activities. But everywhere and everyone in their own state has been talking about, I didn't know. I didn't know we had this here. Or everyone's looking for a further destination. So it's really nice that you have your like we're feeding you more stuff that we're discovering ourselves, which is amazing.
Exactly.
All right, so we are at like this is a fast conversation. Like it's like, oh my God, we've covered so much stuff.
This is awesome.
Last question. If you had a personal ask and a professional ask, a personal and a personal and a professional ask, what would be your personal and professional ask that you would ask anyone that is listening to you right now?
Okay, so my professional ask would be if you know of cool virtual events that exist that aren't available once our website has all of them on there and you take a look that we don't have, send them my way. Like I said, I think that we're only a few people and we're really only as good as the events that we find and are kicked our way. And so getting referrals in of like cool new events, if we don't have it, it might be because we never heard of it. And we've discovered a lot of cool things from that. So anything like that, please refer it our way. We love finding new stuff. We want to be the source for being able to help you find new stuff too. And one of the best ways that we can do that is through referrals. And then for the personal ask would be try new things. So I think that I honestly, before we started this, was somewhat skeptical of virtual events, because I was like, it's still a Zoom call, and then we had done like games, and stuff like that. And it was fun. I'd started trying these new things with our friends. And then I did an online cooking class. as a group. We did a dumpling making class, and it was just so much fun. It actually felt like going out. You know, like Carrie and I afterwards, my wife Carrie, we were like, that was great. Like it felt like we went out for like the first time in months. So my personal advice would be like, go find new stuff, find cool things to do, and try it. You know, like you don't know if it's any good until you try it.
I love it. Oh my God. See, look, Jay, this is like probably the most that we've ever had a conversation one-on-one. And
yeah, I know. And it's been awesome.
I love it. Oh my God. So, and I always see like just once a year. I see the three of you guys once a year at Shownet, our mutual friends, at the walk. And so I love that I got to spend quality one-on-one time with you.
I know. It was great to catch up.
I'm so proud of you. I'm super, super proud of you. I'm excited that you're doing this. And it just, oh my God, it's like the timing couldn't be any better. So thank you
very much
for being here, saying yes to me. Like I go, again, yes, I'm a friend, but it's like, it's kind of like, you're working, right? This is a work. This is you promoting you.
Yeah, so, of course.
So I really appreciate that you took the time to say yes to me and that we had a nice talk. And we talked about our friends that no one knows, but
yeah. I enjoyed it at least.
All right, my friend. Thank you so very much. Next year, I'm going to follow up with you guys because, this is not our last conversation here.
Right.
I'm going to have this conversation continuously because we want to see where you are. I mean, a lot of people that are thinking about being an entrepreneur or starting their own business, you guys inspire. I mean, you are inspiring someone and seeing it's hard, but it's still the most rewarding thing out there. So I'm coming back to you. So don't.
Great. I'm more than happy to. I'm excited for it.
All right, beautiful. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Say hi to Carrie.
I will.